This is Charlie Miller, and you're listening to the Random Variety Show podcast, episode number
Zero, the prequel. Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the Random Variety Show podcast. I'm Charlie Miller, your host. Today we got a great episode with a nice random segment and a fantastic interview. First, I'd like to thank everybody for downloading and listening to the Random Variety Show podcast, the RVSP. Now remember, there is no need to RSVP for the RVSP. Without people like you, I wouldn't be doing it here. Well, actually I would be, but then there'd only be myself listening to it, and that gets kind of boring, and then what's the actual point? Anyway, moving right along. Last time I had a dress rehearsal episode, and that was just to set up the feeds, make sure everything was there, and to establish that we're going to do this bi-weekly. Not twice a week, but every 2 weeks. When I was doing my research for this podcast, I realized and discovered that bi-weekly actually means both definitions. Twice a week or every 2 weeks. And then I started pondering, that's really confusing, because if somebody says, hey, how often do you go out and dine out? And you say, bi-weekly. Very confusing. Do you do it only twice a month, every 2 weeks, or do you do it twice a week? And my thought is, if anybody's going to come up to me and say, hey, how often do you dine out? I'm going to say, do we really use the words dine out anymore? Mostly it's, let's go out, we'll go pick up some food, we'll go eat out, lots of different terms. I don't really hear people saying dine out. And second, why do they care? So I'm going to tell them bi-weekly and let them figure it out, because they don't need to get up in my business about how often I dine out. Anyway, so getting back on track here. The plan right now is to have new episodes every 2 weeks, bi-weekly. However, let's face it, we all know that life can get a little irritating and get in the way of the things that we really want to do, such as this, podcasting. So if there's going to be any anomalies in this 2 week or every 2 week cycle, I'm going to let you guys know on the show. You can follow the Twitter, which is _RVS_podcast on Twitter there, or you can check out the blog spot, and I'll give out the addresses a little bit later. So, moving right along, the shows are going to be about 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes here and there if there's something really good. But I want to keep it able to, well, for me, be able to edit it and not kill myself, but also so it doesn't get too nauseating for you guys out there to listen to, because I know everybody's voice after a while gets really boring. Well, maybe not everybody, people like James Earl Jones or Jeremy Irons or Patrick Stewart or Ian McKellen or Hugh Jackman, people like that. You can listen to read the phone book, for crying out loud, or just recite the alphabet. So, this first segment I'm going to transition to really embodies the R of the Random Variety Show podcast, because this is just going to be something totally random. Essentially, the only consistency of this segment is myself recording into my cell phone while I'm out and about. Usually just something strikes me, an idea hits, or I see something, or maybe I'll meet somebody and record a random interview. It's endless. The possibilities are completely endless. So I can't really say exactly what's going to be here every episode, but I can say it's going to be me out in the field, we'll call it that, recording something. And it's usually going to be about, 5-10 minutes, not really long, but it's going to be something that hits me right then and there. So now this random recording is basically a pickup from the dress rehearsal, where I mentioned the show Awake and Sing by Clifford Odets, and the fact that I had the opportunity to direct it at Powpac in Poway, California. The website www.powpac.org. And we open on March 2nd. I recorded this on Monday the 16th, and where I'm recording this right now is in the in-between stages. We're having callbacks here, and I'll comment on it after you listen to it. So, Charlie, in the car, take it away. Okay, hey, hello, everybody. This is Charlie on the road, I guess. Because I literally am. I'm driving along to pick up some prescription cat food for my cat. He has an allergic reaction to the store-bought brand, the inexpensive store-bought brand. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to get into it. It's not anything else. So therefore, I have to purchase fairly expensive prescription-strength cat food for 8 weeks. And this is week 3 now, I believe. End of 2, beginning of 3. And so I'm on my way to pick up this cat food. To give you an idea, a standard sized cat food can, like a tuna fish can or, anything else in that standard nature, is $2.40. So luckily I can get 2 meals out of that for him. So each meal is only $1.20 plus taxes after that. And the dry food, which is a 3-pound bag, I believe, is $27 plus tax. So I get about half a month of this prescription strength food for, about $60. Now, I love my cat dearly, and in 2.5 weeks now, he has shown a tremendous night and day improvement. So once the vet says he can be off this prescription food, where he's going to give alternatives that are more cost effective. I wanted to share that with you, but I also wanted to share what's been going on the last couple weeks in my life since I posted the dress rehearsal episode. But that's the show Awake and Sing at Powpack, written by Clifford Odets. Actually, today's Monday the 16th. Tonight are the auditions, so I don't expect this to go out before the end of the week, so anyone that's listening to this, it's past the casting point, but hopefully you heard the dress rehearsal episode, and you're on your way out to the theater tonight or tomorrow, Tuesday the 17th. So, needless to say, in the last 2 weeks, I've been doing a ton of research, getting into all 9 characters' heads. Luckily, one of the characters basically comes on to deliver some information. He has 2 moments on stage. One to establish himself, and another to deliver the pivotal information that needs to be delivered as to why his character is there. I think the beauty of the show that I love the most is that every single character, every single line spoken, written, is poetry, really. Everything has a meaning, everything has a motivation, strong motivation behind each and every line. It's really just amazing to listen to. And again, in the realm of poetry, it really needs to be spoken out loud. You need to hear it. My wife, who's helping me on the show, she and I read it out loud to each other, and it's more powerful out loud than it is reading it, and that says a lot. Just like poetry should be read out loud, Shakespeare should be read out loud. I'm a firm believer that scripts should be, anything that's meant to be performed should be read out loud first before, any revisions or anything, because that's what it's meant for. You're meant to hear it. You're not meant to read it. Novels are meant to be read. Textbooks are meant to be read. Scripts of all nature, radio, television, stage, internet, all of it, it's meant for the audio. So hearing it out loud was an amazing experience that really opened a lot of different venues and avenues in my mind in the creative process of trying to get these people to move about their home. This is a place they've lived for 7 years, coupled with the fact that it's an ensemble piece. And ensemble pieces, personally, I love because it is just one big energy ball that just hums along as the show progresses. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling as an actor and as an audience member to be pulled along this way. So tonight are the auditions. So of course I'm a little nervous, just like any actor would be. I'm hoping I get people out for the audition, people that can take direction, people that can work as an ensemble, and I'll take the rest from there. I can pull everything else out. What I'm really excited about is the set design. I'm a firm believer that everything in the theater works together. You've got your set, you've got your costumes, you've got your lights, you've got your sound, you've got your actors. One without the other is incomplete. So with that, the set designer, Todd Kimmel, a friend of ours, he's amazing. He read the script, and spoke to myself, spoke to Rebecca, looked online, spent 20 hours or so probably looking around, drew up a simple sketch, and it was wonderful. And then we got together, showed me some more things he brought up. I showed him some things that I put together, and I am no artist, and I have yet to see it, but he is in the process of building a scale model of the set. Today is also a production meeting before the auditions, so I'm very excited to see this model. So by the time this posts, by then, hopefully I'll also have a cast. So that means probably more than likely the next episode, I'll share information about how the auditions went and how the process is going so far. So now I'm going to send it back to myself in my studio, which just means I'm sitting at the computer instead of driving around talking. And let that schmo edit this thing together. That's that. I'll catch y'all next time on the flip side. Bye.
Smo, huh? Yeah, great. So, yeah, well, I like myself. No, I'm kidding. I tease all the time. So that was recorded the day of the first night of auditions, and holy mackerel, I received so many wonderful candidates for this 9-character show that I was blown away. The reception, the turnout was double about what I had anticipated. I was blown away and really thrown off guard. So I've got to have callbacks because there were so many wonderful candidates between Monday and Tuesday. And callbacks are coming up here, so I don't have any results yet. That'll be next episode. So stay tuned to that. Who says stay tuned? Anyway, now on to the segment that pretty much embodies the V of the RVSP, the variety of it all. This one's going to be a little more consistent, which you'll find out here in this clip. To set this up, for about about 2 months now, I've been trying to find people that would be interested to be interviewed, through Skype, for this podcast. Now it's really difficult since there's nothing that exists, and I got to get stuff out there. So I'm tooling around Skype, and well, I stumbled on this content. I'm just gonna let it roll, and I'll catch you at the end. Hello, hi, this is Charley Miller, and I'm looking for people to interview on my brand new podcast, the Random Variety Show podcast.
Is that so?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. Would you be interested in being interviewed for my show?
Do I have to pay anything?
No, not at all, sir.
Well, then sure, I'll take part in your interview.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Now, sir, to be included in the show, I will read to you a standard release form, which you'll have to verbally agree to, and that way I can include you in on the podcast. Is that all right with you, sir?
What was your name, Sonny?
Charley Miller, sir. This will be used on the Random Variety Show podcast to be released in 2012.
Charlie, is this the standard release form?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Standard release form. What's your first name, sir?
Julius Henry Marx. But most people call me Groucho.
Groucho Marx?
So I've been told. At least that's what I answer to.
But how is that possible? You died in 1977, 35 years ago.
Well, Charlie, it's Charlie, right? That's your name, Charlie? Isn't it Charlie, right?
Yes, sir, it is.
Well, Charlie, I'll sum it up for you in 2 words. Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence? It sounds like something from Wall Street.
Hey, look, who tells the jokes here?
Sorry.
Yes, artificial intelligence. AI is what I believe the layman's term for it is.
But how is this possible?
Well, as you know, the internet's been growing exponentially for a good decade or more, hasn't it?
Well, yes, it has. The amount of information available out there is mind-numbing.
You know, I could say something about numb minds, but I'm going to resist. So, with all this flux of information and media that is available at the click of a mouse or the stroke of a key or the swipe of a finger, coupled with all the servers and hosts and feeds and a bunch of other internet garble that I don't completely understand, and well, through the magic of the internet, voila, here I am.
Are you telling me that with all the sources and servers and networks and everything else available in cyberspace that an artificial intelligence created you?
Well, I'm not what you'd call a computer person, but that's what I can figure out.
Wow, this is truly amazing. This is incredible. So what year is it for you?
Well, Charlie, that's the one strange thing I've had trouble figuring out.
Figuring out the year is strange for you, but everything else is hunky-dory.
Well, since the internet has such a vast archive of media and information, and it may not be dated correctly, it can be difficult to distinguish one year from another. I know that right now it's 2012. However, I feel like it's 1961, right after You Bet Your Life ended. Actually, it was canceled by NBC. And right after that ridiculous short-lived show, Tell It to Groucho, got canned. What a pain in the ass that was. Even the title was a pain in the ass. I don't want to get into it.
I believe Tell It to Groucho was in 62.
Was it? Well, at my age, you're allowed to forget some details now and then.
So, let me get this straight. It feels like 1962 to you, but the rest of it's 2012?
Well, I'm aware it's 2012, but I feel like it's 1962. Let me tell you, it's a strange feeling being a disembodied voice floating around the internet.
I'm sure it is. Well, I, for one, am certainly glad to have stumbled upon your contact information, sir.
Me too, Charlie. I've been waiting for someone to talk to. It's been lonely these last few years.
So you've been around for a few years now?
Well, that's the hottest thing to pinpoint. I feel like it's 1962, but I know it's 2012. But I don't know how long I've been aware of my current existence.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Isn't it, though? So, to keep the explaining down to a minimum, we'll just chalk it up to the magic of the internet. How's that sound? Does that sound good to you?
I think that's a perfect answer, Mr. Marx. The magic of the internet. Now, Groucho, I do have a question for you, and I hope you won't take offense to it.
I'm already offended.
Well, then I'm sorry, I won't ask the question.
No, please go ahead. I was kidding. I've been starved for conversation.
And you won't take offense to it?
Well, I'll tell you if I'm offended after I hear the question. How does that sound? Does that sound fair?
Well, I believe in the whole AI thing, I do, and the magic of the internet thing, but your voice just doesn't sound right.
First, you tried being dead for 35 years. Second, you come back to life again by some crazy, unexplainable way that can only be placated by answering with an oxymoronic statement such as artificial intelligence, which happened to be developed by some unknown method deep within the vast servers and networks all throughout cyberspace over the last decade. And lastly, third, give a trite explanation as simple-minded as the magic of the internet. If people will believe those three things, who cares if my voice doesn't sound the same as it did over 50 years ago on archaic devices such as radio and television? This is the magic of the internet. Of course my voice won't sound the same.
I suppose you're right.
Of course I'm right. I'm Groucho Marx. So, you started this conversation by saying you were looking for interviews for some broken peas.
I'm sorry, broken peas?
Podcasts. You know, if I have to explain the jokes to you, they're not as funny.
Oh, yes. yes. Broken peas in a cast podcast. Okay, yeah. Yes, I am starting a podcast, and I am looking for people to interview.
Well, I would love to interview.
You would, really? That's fantastic. I'll use your interview for the first episode. Okay, let's get started. So you've been floating around as a disembodied voice on the internet for a decade, you say?
So you're going to interview me?
Yes, sir, as long as that's okay with you.
Well, Charlie, anybody can do a Google search and find out more about me. But what about you?
Me?
Yes, you. Could people Google you?
Well, I suppose so. People can Google anything nowadays.
Well, that's true. So why don't I do the interviews for you?
Interview me?
Well, that and all the other guests you're going to have on your show. I gather you're going to have more guests on your show. It would get awfully boring listening to you talk to yourself all the time.
Well, yes, of course I plan on having other guests on the show. That's such a generous offer, Groucho.
Well, there are a lot of podcasts out there in cyberspace that offer interviews and discussions, and most of them are very informative and entertaining. However, none of them offer the opportunity to be interviewed by the legendary Groucho Marx.
Well, no, of course not. I think I'm the only person that knows you exist in cyberspace. Everyone else thinks you've been dead since 1977.
That's right. So why don't I conduct these interviews for your show and try to claim back those 35 years?
Really? Really? You would do that for me?
Of course. Besides, Besides, I've been itching for something to do. You know, it's not much fun floating around cyberspace as a disembodied voice.
No, there's not too much fun being a disembodied voice. Well, unless you're on a podcast.
You know, it really takes you a moment to get the jokes, doesn't it?
Sorry.
So, how about it? I'll handle the interviews, you handle the rest of the show. Does that sound good? How's that sound?
Well, that would definitely make my show unique.
I know. So, you were saying people can Google you?
Well, yes.
Have you Googled yourself? And I mean that in a nice way.
Well, it's been a while, but,
Did you find anything interesting?
No, not really. A few things here and there. Flickr, Twitter.
Nothing like when you Google Groucho Marx. So, you're starting a podcast.
Yes, I am.
Actually, I should ask you why you're starting a podcast. Are you into self-mutilation?
Well, I'm an actor, performer, entertainer.
Well, that explains it.
And ever since I discovered podcasts, I've had the idea of doing my own show rolling around in my head.
And how long has that been?
Well, I heard a podcast years ago, and I kind of knew what they were, but I really didn't have any idea how they worked or where to find them or anything like that until I got my MP3 player, my iPod, and discovered the podcast feeds through iTunes.
What podcasts do you listen to?
Well, there are about 30 different ones I listen to on a semi-regular basis. I don't know if I should get into them all.
Well, what are your top 3 or 5?
Well, I really enjoy the podcasts by the How Stuff Works staff at howstuffworks.com, as well as The Smartest Man in the World with Greg Proops, This Week with Larry Miller, The David Feldman Show, The Pod F Tomcast with Paul F. Tompkins. That's a good one. Of course, Jarbology and The Survivalist, both by Matt Jarbo. The Moth Stories is wonderful. Succotash with Mark Hershon. That's a funny venue of podcast. I like it a lot. Cod Eye has some really interesting stories and videos up on YouTube. Some old-time radio podcasts. However, I think my favorite, absolute favorite, would be Music from 100 Years Ago with Bryce Fuqua. And my hands-down all-time favorite would be Waking from the American Dream with Kelly Carlin over on the Smodcast network.
Uh-huh. So all of those are your top 5. I'm glad I didn't ask for his top 10.
Yeah, I can't count.
Well, that's obvious. So, you say it took you 2 years to come up with something to podcast about. Well, I'm glad I came along when I did. It could have taken another 2 years.
Well, maybe not exactly 2 years, but probably closer to a year and a half. I guess the thought of having my own show has always been a thought of mine, whether it's on, TV, stage, radio, the internet.
So, you're an actor. What have you done?
Well, mostly stage down here in Southern California. I don't think most of the internet has really heard of me.
Well, that's okay. They're listening to you now. What are some of the shows that you've done? What are your favorite roles that you've played?
Well, I have been fortunate enough to play both supporting and lead roles. I think my favorite supporting roles would be Corporal Billy Jester in Little Mary Sunshine by Rick Beosian at Scripps Ranch Theater here in San Diego when did I do that? 2006. Tony the Waiter from Birthday Suite by Robin Hardon at Onstage Playhouse in Chula Vista. That was 2005. I think my favorite lead roles would be Bob from Beau Jest, which was written by James Sherman, and I did that at Lamplighters in 2004. And my all-time favorite, kind of embarrassed to say this now, my all-time favorite is the the title role from the play Groucho, A Life in Review by Arthur Marx and Robert Fisher. I did that at Onstage Playhouse in 2008.
Well, I think that last one's pretty obvious. So, have you won any local awards for these roles?
Well, not all the roles, but yes, for some of them. Over the years, I've won Best Male Lead in a Comedy, Best Male Lead in a Drama, and Best Male Lead in a Musical, with a handful of awards for just supporting the theater and supporting roles and on stage and off.
I can tell that the performing arts are really a passion of yours.
Yes, very much so, Groucho.
So tell me more about this show you're going to podcast.
Well, it's called the Random Variety Show Podcast, or the RVSP. No need to RSVP for the RVSP.
Mm-hmm. That's clever. That's very clever. I hope that cleverness lasts for you. So it'll be a variety show of random segments.
Well, something like that. I'm still working the bugs out.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, actually, we settled one of those segments. I'll provide those interviews for you.
Thank you. I can't thank you enough, Groucho. So I guess I'll give you the contact information and you'll go from there?
That's right. Just send them on over and I'll take care of the rest.
Groucho, I can't thank you enough.
Yes, you can, and we'll figure out the details later. Just remember that you'll owe the William Morris office 10%. You know, Charlie, I know that this is your show and all, but I thought of an idea for the interview segment.
What's that, Groucho?
Well, I'm sure you've seen that show on Bravo, Inside the Actor's Studio with James Lipton, have you not?
Yes, I have. I watch really for specific guests, because James Lipton drives me crazy.
I know, I can't stand him either. Except when he guest starred on 4 different episodes of Arrested Development in 2004 and 2005 as Warden Stephen Gentles. He was pretty decent in that.
Wait, what? Wait, you know Arrested Development? You like Arrested Development?
Remember the whole AI and magic of the internet thing, Charlie?
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, yeah. Magic of the internet. Got the mythology down.
Yes, we have the mythology of us established. As I was saying, Arrested Development, it's a fantastic show with excellent writing and superb acting. I'm really looking forward to the movie and the extra episodes due out sometime this year or maybe next. Anyway, back to what I was saying. James Lipton, at the end of each episode of Inside the Actor's Studio, he would ask his guest those Bernard Pivot questions based on that show in France.
Yes, if I remember those questions. Those are great questions, very thought-provoking. I didn't see the French show, though.
Well, neither did I, but I think I'm going to end the interviews with those questions. It worked for Pivot, it worked for Lipton, I'll make it work for Marx.
Sounds great to me, Groucho. I'm just glad I don't have to conduct these interviews.
I bet you are. So, since I happen to have a copy of those questions here with me right now, why don't we get started?
What, me?
And why not? We're interviewing right now, aren't we?
Well, I guess we are, yes.
So, we'll do the questions. What is your favorite word?
Pickle.
What is your least favorite word?
Prune.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Connecting with nature.
And now what turns you off?
Close-minded people.
What is your favorite curse word?
Bullshit.
What sound or noise do you love?
Applause.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Traffic.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Profession other than my own, what I want to attempt? Astronaut.
And what profession would you not like to do?
Doctor.
And lastly, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive?
Welcome. Come on in. We've been waiting for you.
So now I guess we should have some sort of clever closing for this segment, shouldn't we?
I suppose we should.
I'll think of something clever for next time, but for now I'll say go to your DeSoto Plymouth dealer and tell him Groucho sent you.
But they haven't been in business for decades.
You're lucky I said DeSoto Plymouth. I could have said Elgin American, but I don't think our listeners would know that they were one of the first sponsors of You Bet Your Life when it was on the radio.
That's very true. Very true.
Well, I'll have something figured out for next time.
Well, Groucho, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm so appreciative of it, and it's just wonderful to have you. Thank you so much.
No problem at all.
I'm speechless. Thank you. Thank you. So, well, the magic of the internet. What an answer. I mean, who would have thought that I, a person living, breathing, existing in 2012, would be able to speak to Groucho Marx from 1962? I mean, and then that he would be at least semi-conscious of the fact that it is 2012. 50 years! 50 years! All through the magic of the internet. Well, who would believe it? I would. That's who. I'd believe it. And I hope you do too. When I was speaking with Mr. Marx, I forgot to mention what shows the awards were for. Best in Comedy was for Beau Jest. Best in Dramatic was My Cousin Rachel, and that was at Lamplighters in La Mesa in 2000. Oh, I want to say 7 or 6. I don't remember so much anymore. And that was written by Daphne du Maurier. Sadly, Lamplighters is no longer around. They lost their venue. The city did some budget changes and things, and they're just not around anymore. So, I mean, they have a board, they have their meetings, but there's just no place for them to put on a show, sadly. It was a wonderful, wonderful venue. And lastly, the Best in Musical, that was for Groucho, A Life in Review at Onstage. And that was my favorite, absolute favorite. Well, that was my interview with Groucho Marx, and I have to tell you that was a very strange experience. However, I'm glad that he did suggest those pivot questions. I think that's going to add a real nice touch to this. It's something I didn't even think of. So I'm going to provide Groucho with the people to interview. He'll contact them, send me the recording, and make my job so much easier. So, if you would like to be interviewed by Groucho or have any comments or suggestions, you can email us at the Random Variety Show Podcast, that's all one word, at gmail.com. You can tweet at us at Twitter. The Twitter is _RVS_podcast. You can subscribe through iTunes by searching the Random Variety Show Podcast or searching my name, Charley Miller, CharleyMiller. We also just got a Google Plus page, which is nice. You can search us out there. And lastly, the blog is located at the Random Variety Show Podcast.blogspot.com. And in the future, I'm going to get a Facebook fan page up as well. Well, we've come to that time of the show where I'd like to thank my guest, Groucho Marx, for being on my show. And I'd like to thank all of you for downloading and listening to the Random Variety Show podcast. As I said, without you, I wouldn't be here. This is Charley Miller saying, see you next time. Good night, folks. Mr. Marx appears courtesy of the chaotic prattle and vibrations of Mr. Miller's larynx and the marvelous wizardry of the Internet.